All right, so I will go ahead and tell you. Now, this is dangerous because I probably shouldn't do this because it might encourage you to procrastinate, but I'm encouraging you to make your own positive choices, even regardless of is the deadline tomorrow or is the deadline next week. And no deadline is tomorrow. So I was just saying that as like a general statement. We know for sure 526, 531, and 532 are due on Friday. 533 is now maybe due. It is tonight's homework. But I don't want to move like too fast and have people like struggling a whole lot. So first things first, get out 531 because we're going to check that and see if we have questions on it. While you're waiting for classmates to get out 531, if you already have yours out, get out 533. If you already turned it in yesterday, I probably need to pass it back to you. So like right in this, you feel I have your PC healed because you turned it in yesterday. I got it. Great. Well, okay, if you turned it in like before today is really what I mean. Before today. So while we're recording, if anyone is still working on stuff, 524, I don't know that we formally checked it together. I goofed it up, and this is why you shouldn't do math in pen. There were only 8 options there. Our probability questions, through me watching Dino, I've seen a lot of you guys using the Math with Mr. Dell page to get help on this. Totally fine, right? That's why I suggested it to you guys. Some of you are probably going to fall in the trapdoor, / already did. I checked this working. Of course, I'm not marking things wrong. Because a proportion is anytime we try to set up a fraction equal to a fraction. Angel's lemonade is not the same. This fraction to fraction does not equal each other. It's not the same. Yeah. I know, I'm going fast because I'm trying to get to 531. In 63, if anyone is still struggling with that, we would need a common denominator. You don't have to do the same work as me, but we would need a common denominator. And in the magic diamond problems, D and A seem to be tough for people. Whenever there's decimals, my advice would be act like there aren't decimals and then put decimals back in to make it work. So like think of this as 8 and 4, right? 8 and 4 would multiply to make 32. They would add to make 12. And then if I make them decimal values, it actually works. And in D, you just kind of got to play with division until you figure it out. The probability trees should not have been bad because it's just one option, then the next option, then the next option. So like shorts, shoes. Although I would normally put my shorts on first. But either way, shoes are probably last. Saw people getting help from Mr. Dell on this problem on 73. 74, there may not be much work to show, but D seemed to be tripping some people up of like a number divided by itself is always 1. Doesn't matter if the number's positive or negative or what, a number divided by itself is always 1. All right, then finally, well, 2-6, because we didn't check this one. Actually, yeah, if you want to pull out 2-6, because that one's due Friday and we haven't checked that, let's take a moment for you to look at 2-6. So pull out 2-6. This is also why I'm saying we might have to slow down this week because I wanted to take some time to check homework. If you look at my 2-6, like 5-2-6, of course, and some of you are getting it back, no, unless you turned it in early. Man, you have a picture organization. Having your paper shoved in a folder is a really bad idea. It's like walking into Home Depot and just randomly walking around hoping to find the right thing. No, trust me, I bet he's been there before and he knows where the screws are at and where the whatever's at. Like literally, if somebody put you in a random store you've never been in and you just walked around randomly hoping to find the thing you wanted, that's like some of your guys' organization. These shapes are what we call composite shapes, meaning they're multiple shapes put together, which most of our world is composite shapes. Or like a lot of houses are a rectangle with a triangle sitting on top of it. So here we have a trapezoid. Check the work for trapezoid up there. With a square sitting on top of it. More important than trying to fold your paper would probably be looking at the work that was done here and maybe looking at the correct side of your paper to look at the problem instead of just ignoring what I'm doing, you could actually benefit from it by listening, looking, and maybe highlighting or color coding things. The trapezoid area still tends to be a more difficult one for us because we have to add the bases together. And then divide by 2 because we're technically averaging the bases. So that's why the first thing you see me do, where's your 5, 2, 6? Or do you need to do more? Then let's get you one. So come back here. And then once we do that, we can multiply by height and get that area. Part B should have been slightly easier because a parallelogram works exactly the same as a rectangle. If you're staring at a homework that is not done for 526, ask yourself about the decisions that you're making. You've had this since last week. There's no reason that it should be completely not even started. No reason. You have a plan book where you write down your assignments. Use it to keep track of your assignments. If we know 70%, we can get back to 10%. And from 10%, we can get to anything. Your work wouldn't have to look exactly like mine, but when they tell us there's a 60% probability, I know, I don't do this very often, but I went to decimal form then. I know, what? Hudson using decimal instead of fractions? Questions on 86? Because what we're saying is if they do that thing 110 times, how many times would we expect blue? Or how many times would we expect green? In 87, common denominators. Right? We can't escape needing to use common denominators. I mean, 88 is just more probability, the thing we're talking about over the total. Compound probability in part C, guys. Compound probability, you take your one probability and multiply by the other because this is an and situation. Right? We talked, when we looked at our math notes, that the and situations multiply. What would add? What word would tell us, oh, we add instead of multiply? Jane? Oh, sweet. Question. What's up? Probably choose a red apple if it's the first. So I guess made the assumption that he knows it's an apple when he touches it, right? Like, so if he's looking for, so if you had 3 out of 10, that's fine, because you just looked at the total of everything there. But I was looking at just apples. Like if he reaches for the apples, what's the chance? Yeah. So I mean, I like the fact that you said 3 out of 10, because if we look at everything, so yeah, I mean, I would also accept 3/10 here. I guess I was assuming you'd know apple versus yogurt. Again, the and probability situation, it multiplies. If you want something and something else, it multiplies. Guys, a lot of us are struggling with graphing with the XY axes. Please actually give a crap about when you're graphing, and if you don't know what to do, get help. Go ahead. In C, you could have done something different. You don't have to follow exactly what I did, but I figured, well, if I just want to add 8 more units, I could just add 8 more by extending down to these green points. Jerry paid $4.59 for 5.4 pounds. Guys, I could actually write out the work getting this to a single pound. Sorry if you're watching the video, you're not going to be able to see this. But if I wanted to get to a single pound, that would take me to 1 on bottom. How do I get from 5.4 to 1? Well, we divide by 5.4, which is essentially what we could just do here. We're not doing our homework right now. We're going over it. We're not doing it. You need to learn how to do it on your own time because that's life. Figuring out how to get done what we need to get done with the time that we have. On 92, if you turn that in, I got to drive from over here because it's too annoying using the touch controls. If you turn that in with 0 work, it's going to be a check minus and probably a C me. Guys, these sort of problems are too much math to try to keep just in your head. It's just too much. There's like 8 different things to do in this problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's actually 7. There are legit 7 different things that have to be done to solve part B. You have to show some work, and you need to get in the habit of once you do something, drop it vertical. Once you do something else, drop it vertical. Just keep dropping things down so whatever doesn't change, and keep dropping down. And yeah, on a couple of these, I did 2 things at once. Because if 7 times 8 has nothing to do with this parentheses, I can do the parentheses, and I can do this multiplication. They're separate from each other. I can get away with doing both of those at the same time. You don't have to, but you can. Like, that's an option. If you want to kind of take the shortcut, you can get away with doing a couple steps at the same time if they're separate from each other, right? So that's what my work shows, is combining multiple steps at once because they're separate. And now actually on to 531, which we had from Monday. If they tell you the length is 7 feet more than twice the width, the 7 is not what we write first. The 7 is what we have to add on to. Add on to what? The twice the width. So my perimeter, I have 2 of the short ends, 2 widths. But I also have 2 of the long sides. So double of 2w plus 7. Okay, well, I could walk around and add them all up. Or I went ahead and said, what if I just do 2 of those and 2 of those? Either way, we get down to 6w plus 14. Area, guys, look up here. Even if you haven't done this yet, look up there. Area is length times width. And when we do w times 2w, w times w makes w squared. But you can't forget about the 2. When you do w times 7, that's 7w. Stop. It's just disrespectful because you think I'm dumb and don't see what's happening. I do. If you want to cheat and copy what I'm doing, go back and watch the video. You at least have to put in that much effort. Guys, literally part of what you're learning through going through school is just having to complete certain tasks with certain amount of time to do it and managing your time to get that done. Sorry, that's part of what we're trying to make sure you can do. Bethany? I am happy for you to have highlighters out right now, highlighting the important pieces of the problem and stuff like that. But when it's obvious that I'm like peeking over people's desks and it's totally blank, you haven't even tried it on your own. You know what I mean? Like, you got to take some time to actually try stuff on your own to know what you know or know what you need help on. So it doesn't take getting all the way to the mastery to be like, oh, crap, I don't know what I'm doing. You should figure that out through the practice. When we're scaling number lines, you can essentially just use what they show you. So to walk through why I did what I did, the gap between negative 12 and 6 is 18. But how many jumps was it? 1, 2, 3. Remember, you're not counting tick marks. You're counting the jumps, the gaps, the steps. So what would each of those be worth? 6, because 18 divided by 3. Same thing down here, except it's a gap of 27. 6
Still 3 jumps. So 27 divided by 3.
Wait, do we need to write the stuff on the top, or can we just do like the number?
My answer key is always probably going to have a bit more than what you have. Maybe just because I want it to show you what I was thinking. Now, if you don't write down what you're thinking, I hope you were actually thinking it instead of copying from someone else or just watching Mr. Dell until he gets to the answer. Right? Yeah, that's exactly what I was just explaining to Emery. Like, this is just me showing my thinking. You don't necessarily have to, but you can, right, below and above the normalized, help fit in, like, whatever you want. I mean, this hint was really if you are struggling to fit your numbers in there. You could go like negative 18 up here, negative 12, negative 6 up there. Like, you could go up and down if you need to. Guys, the biggest thing is if you are struggling to get through homework on your own, ask for help. Like, either get help online, come see me. I know, crazy, right? 1/3 off. How much is on? 2/3. It's 1/3 off, 2/3 is on. And 102, again, order of operations. So if you got those wrong, you probably did something in the wrong order. Eli, put it down. Put your pencil down, sir. Okay. And then pieces per minute. You can either show the proportion of how we get to the other fraction, or literally we just do the division, because pieces per minute, per tells us divide. Questions? But if you haven't tried it on your own, you probably don't know if you have questions or not. Emery. How many gets rounded per minute?
No, I mean like how, like if you could put in how many per minute. No, like I know.
We took this, did this, got 86.8, and that is the amount we could do if we only did it for 1 minute. 1 minute, turn the machine off. Now, obviously, like the machine's in the middle of finishing a piece of candy when you turn it off. That's the 0.8, right? But we're probably not just running the machine for a minute. So what if we ran the machine for 2 minutes? Well, it would do that times 2. What if we ran the machine for 10 minutes? Well, it would do that times 10. What if we ran the machine for 100 minutes? Well, it's always the 86.8 times however many minutes we go for, which they tell us is X minutes. So whatever you get told, hey, run the machine for 2 hours. Okay, that's 120 minutes, right? So 120 minutes would go in there, and we can figure out how many pieces of candy we'll have after that 2 hours. But you'd have to be working in minutes, right? That's the trick, is you have to be in minutes. All right, the only thing we need out now is 533. 533. Well, and graph paper. Yep, of course, graph paper. Yeah, well, you probably want your resource page out. Whether or not you use it will be up to you. No, because the resource page is the 5D process. You can use it if you want. Actually, I don't even know if the problem's from today. No, because we're not going to do Ryan's. We might have time to do Ryan's, but we probably won't, just because we spent so long on homework. So honestly, you probably won't use your graph, You probably won't use the resource page because we will use graph paper instead. All right. Triangles are easier to classify than what I ever thought until, I think it was Mr. Hall, might have been Mr. Smith actually, showed me this little trick. Scalene triangles, isosceles triangles, equilateral triangles. Look up here. No, the 3 different types of triangles. Scalene, isosceles and equilateral. I know you don't probably have these words memorized yet, but if you go over like shapes posters or whatever, you'll see the different types of triangles. Scalene means none of the sides are equal. Well, in an S, it's all curvy. Nothing's really like equal to each other. Watch. Trust me. It's going to change your life forever. An isosceles triangle has two pieces that are identical. An isosceles triangle has two pieces, just like a capital I has two pieces that are identical. And an equilateral triangle has three pieces that are identical, just like a capital E, when drawn like that, has three identical parts. Isosceles, two identical pieces. Scalene, no identical pieces. So what we're working with here is a scalene triangle. So it has no equal pieces, right? That's what they didn't tell us, no equal pieces. The medium side is 7 centimeters longer than the shortest side. The longest side is twice as long as the shortest side. I bet using this information and knowing, I'm just changing color, and knowing the total perimeter, do we know the total perimeter? 39. So I bet we can use this to figure out each side of the triangle. Now, if my triangle has a short side, a medium side, and a long side, what variables might I start with, Eli? If we have short, medium, and long, what variables might I start with? Yeah! Short, medium, and long. We got a short side. We got a medium side. I would write this on your graph paper, but you know, some of you make choices that are different than what I do, and I can't control you. So. Short, medium, long. Ezekiel, what do they tell us about the short side? Do they tell us anything about the short side? Ah, crap. Well, I guess we'll come back to that. What do they tell us about the medium side? How could I write that? M is really S plus 7. 7 centimeters longer. Nice work, Ezekiel. Carolina, what about the long side do they tell us? How do I write that? Yeah, S times 2, or the nicer way to write it mathematically is actually 2 times S. We just like the number being in front. Since the medium side is using S, and since the long side is using S, what do we want the short side to use? Also S. Guys, write down S equals S. Trust me, when you don't, people forget about it. Now, since you know the perimeter is 39, I want to see if you and your teammates can remember what we did yesterday to figure out how long is the short side, and once we know that, we can figure out everything else. Take a minute or two, try this out. You know the perimeter is 39. How do we do this? How many sides make up the perimeter of a triangle? Guys, what we really have, if you're struggling to start, look up here so that I can tell some people are not really looking to dive in on their own. what we're doing is S plus M plus L equals 39. Short, medium, long, the three sides add up to 39. Am I going to change what I have written for the short side? No. So we drop it vertically. Am I going to change what I wrote for the middle side, the M? Yeah, I want to replace that M with what? The S plus 7, because I would rather use all the same variables. So S plus 7. Do I want to keep the L or use something different? What? The 2S. From here, we should remember what to do if we paid attention yesterday and actually made ourselves do it. Take 90 seconds, try to do this on your own. Because that's what I told the afternoon class, that if they had done algebra instead of 5D, it would only take them 90 seconds. 5D processing to waste our time. If you flip back to the resource page, you can find 5Ds of like describe, define, do, decide, declare. There's your 5Ds. Now, if we were 5Ding, would we start by guessing like, oh, maybe the short side's 30? No, we're smart enough to say like, well, no, that'd be silly because 30, another 37, 60, right? But again, that guess check process is silly. It's been 60 seconds. I bet I can do this in 15 seconds. Challenge. 5. All right, in 15 seconds. How many S's do we have total? Anyone? 4, because 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 7 equals 39. What do I do to start working my S back by itself? Anybody?
Make a little scale thing.
Ooh, we could draw it. We don't have to. Get rid of the extra 7. We don't want like the boards that we were dealing with, the short boards, the long boards. Get rid of the extra. Now my 4 shorts, or here my 4 smalls, are how big? 32. And if I know that 4 of them are 32, now we divide by 4. Guys, I swear your life will be so much easier if you take the time to write this stuff down now and go back and look at it when you're doing your homework.
But I'm confused. Like, I thought they were all like not equal.
That's only the short side. Because the S's that we used up here, all of those S's are equal. But now that we have figured out the short side is 8, now we go back and plug it in. Plug it in, plug it in. If the short side is 8, what is the medium side actually?
It's 15.
15. Hold on, 2 seconds. If the short side is 8, the long side is 16. You messed it up some more. You're minus 7. What's the, you looked at that and you saw your handwriting is why you screwed up there. Sam?
I accidentally found the largest number instead of the smallest.
Don't know how you did that.
Well,
I'm going to come back and look at it because I'm going to set you guys up with another situation. I don't know if I love that one. Let's try this one. I'm coming back once we highlight this. remembers. I don't like blue. Well, until I have to use it. Jenny remembers she made 3 times as many baskets as Grace. Alexis made 6 more baskets than Grace. Joan made 4 fewer baskets than Grace. Tammy,
Oh, how many people are playing basketball?
well, a lot of people normally. Tammy made the same number of baskets as Joan. Ooh. And the 5 players together had a total of 40. I want you to at least start trying to set up expressions. Like, what would you write for Jenny? What would you write for Alexis? What would you, like, that's what we're really practicing here, guys. So, what you did is not the correct process. And you're shooting yourself in the foot by writing down what you thought was correct and not taking the time to say, okay, this actually wasn't correct, and writing down what we did. Because we shouldn't be dividing by 2. Because we actually, in total, have 4 S's. You ended up accidentally getting an answer that goes with the problem. That was an accident. So, like, just like what we talked about this morning with your mastery revision, if you're not paying attention to what's going on up here, like when we go over it together, you're not getting the full benefit. Okay, so like on this next one, I would write down like what we do, and if what you tried is different than what we do, make sure you write down what we do. I mean, you can always go back to the video, right? If you decide later, oh, I do want to get that written down. Sam, I'm going to skip your card for now since I had you a little preoccupied for a second. Emery, what could I write for Jenny?
3 times G.
And guys, I'm going to set this up with J, and then like beneath J, I don't really like underlining because it makes it look like a fraction. You said what now?
3 times G.
3 times G. So Jenny is 3 times G. Please make sure your G does not look like a 6. Jack, what could I write for Alexis?
G plus 6.
Alexis, G plus 6. 6 versus G. Trust me. 5 versus S also. Donna, what can I write for Joan? Ooh, fewer. Your pencil should be writing right now. Unless all of these are already written down. And either way, we're not drumming. I can't focus. Joan, oh man. See, if I use J again, so we could use like J-O. I'm going to just go totally different and go N for like Joan because her name ends with an N. But either way, now I'm just going to write G minus 4 because she had 4 fewer. Lane, feel better. Sophie, what about Tammy? She made the same baskets as Joan. Oh, and Joan was G minus 4, so Tammy's G minus. No, wait a minute. They said the 5 players.
Grace.
What? We haven't talked about Grace yet. I mean, we've talked about her a lot, but we need to put Grace up on our scoreboard. What would we write for Grace?
Grace equals Grace.
Just G. Guys, do we have questions about these expressions up here? Because this is why I'm slowing down. I want to make sure that like this stage makes sense. Then we'll make sure the algebra makes sense. This is like halfway into algebra. You got like a foot in the pool. You're like not dove in all the way.
So with the G minus 4 for Tammy, could I put T equals N?
Why would you want to put an N down here when everything else is G's?
No.
I mean, you could, but why would you want to? We would rather use all the same variables. So all of them together equal 40, right? All of them together. Oh, crap. I got to add. How many G's in total? Careful. There's a 3G. 3G. 6, 7. I think it's only 7. Because 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7G, based off all the times we talked about grace. Guys, I'm going to take my time. Plus 6 plus negative 8. Because we had 6 here. Negative 4, negative 4. So that's where I went 6 plus negative 8. That makes sense? Because the negative 4. I'm just not doing it yet. I just wrote it down. We had positive 6. Then negative 4, negative 4. So really negative 8. So what's 6 plus negative 8?
Negative 2.
So we get 7G plus negative 2. Ooh, this is different than like the short boards, long boards. Like, crap, now I have an extra negative 2.
Then do you just do like minus plus negative 2?
But plus a negative 2 will take me to negative 4. How do I get negative 2 to become 0?
Plus 2. You can just plus a 2 from now on.
Yeah, you can. As long as you do things on both sides, you can do whatever the heck you want. As long as you do it on both sides. Remember, right now, if you felt like it, you could multiply everything by 100. There's no reason to, but you could. Algebra lets you do whatever you want. As long as you do it to both sides. Literally, algebra lets you do whatever you want. So now 7G equals what? That's a 6. 7G equals 42, and how would we get back to our single G?
42
Anybody?
divided by 7.
Since this is multiplying, we gotta divide. G is 6. And then now that we know what Grace scored, now we can take it back up and figure out what everybody else scored. That's how we could figure out what everybody else scored. Now, would you have preferred to do this or guess for Grace, try it out, adjust, guess again, try it out?
Algebra.
I feel like this is better.
Algebra.
All right, have a great day, guys. On both sides. We're getting there. We don't have to be formalized with algebra yet. I'm really focusing on can we do the expressions. Hey, be aware, if we slow down, like I think we're going to slow down, we're probably going to take a tiny little quiz on Friday, like 1 or 2 questions.
We're slowly but surely. Bro, this makes more sense every day.
That's the point of coming to school and learning.